Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over exercise modification and some methods that we can use to auto-regulate and continue exercising so that we can keep adherence to a program as best as we can. So let's get right into it. So why would we modify exercise in the first place? Now, one of them could be due to fatigue. This could be due to numerous amount of factors, psychological, a lot of different things. But if, let's say we programmed fatigue, like let's say we programmed a given volume and that given volume is a little too high for the current threshold of stimulus that we're capable of adapting from, we may need to back off a little bit, and that may not be something that we want to do immediately going into a block. So a lot of time it's beneficial to start off with a low volume, or it may be more, it might be a better idea to start off with a lower load or a lower volume and then gradually build up as the program goes on. Now I'm going to kind of sum up the next couple bullet points into just this common scenario, but basically another reason why we would want to modify exercise. Let's say you woke up one day and you had some subtle pain going on, or you tweaked your back doing something. Um, what we may want to do is to desensitize the area to what caused the pain or what caused the subtle pain that went on in the first place. So let's say you tweaked your back doing something, picking something up off the floor, and let's say you have some hypersensitivity going into some form of extension. Now, obviously, exercise all of this with caution. I'm not a medical provider, but one way that if you want to keep adherence to a program, this could be beneficial. So let's say you're hypersensitive going into some form of extension where we are standing up and going backwards. What we could do is, let's say you had squats programmed for the day, or it's like a high bar, low bar squat, right? So one of those variations. What we could do is, if you have access to it, now obviously we can modify exercises in a multitude of different ways, but one thing that we can potentially implement is, let's say, like a belt squat. Now, belt squat is a great movement. It is one way that where we can load the lower extremities, provide some stimulus to the lower extremities so we can keep adherence to a program. So belt squat, commonly you'll have a belt going around your hips, which is usually attached to a chain. And that chain is basically attached to a lever system where there's some form of external loading. Now, this is going to be different from a barbell squat in terms of the adaptations that we're going to receive, because we're not getting as much axial loading as we would get out of a low bar or a high bar or whatever kind of squat variation compared to that belt squat. But it's still a good way to get some form of stimulus to the lower extremities to help keep up with the adherence to a program and to build the capacity that we are trying to achieve. This is another way to this could be one way that we can desensitize the area to what caused the subtle pain that we had in the first place. And like I mentioned before, of course, exercise all this with caution, seek additional help if needed. So let's continue on. So these are some other methods that we can utilize to modify the exercises. One of them could be increasing the tempo or the cadence of the repetition. Essentially, one way that we think about this is increasing the time that it takes to perform the exercise and to essentially decrease the load while maintaining a relatively high intensity. So what I have here is two examples of different cadences. So if you follow my cursor, usually from what I've learned, if we take like a 3-2-0 kind of cadence, it is a 3-second eccentric, 2-second isometric, and then a 0-second or as fast as possible concentric. So let's say you're performing like a barbell bench press. You have a 3-second lowering phase, 2-second pause where the bar is still on your chest, and then push up as fast as possible. Or we could swap the exercise. So if someone's training to develop an area of capacity, there's usually, if not, um, most of the time, if not all the time, there is a way to change up an exercise to produce the desired adaptation that we're going after. So that goes back to the belt squat example. And then finally, a rating of perceived exertion on the modified Borg scale of 1 to 10, or just RPE in general. It's another good way. Now, sometimes people may have difficulty gauging RPE. One way that I've learned, that I've implemented, to if you are a new lifter or you've been in the gym for, let's say, six months to a year, Obviously, there's different ways that you can classify new and intermediate, right? But let's say you are unfamiliar with RPE and you've been in the gym for a little while. One way that you can do this through trial and error is, let's say you take like a bicep curl and you were to curl till failure and you keep going past what you normally could do, or have a training partner alongside you or a trainer or somebody there to help push you along and to help you feel what an RPE 9-10 stimulus feels like. Now, it might be beneficial to do that on an exercise where you can drop the load easily compared to, let's say, like a barbell back squat, because if you were to drop a barbell back squat, obviously there's a little bit of a higher risk for injury, in my opinion. Let's say doing it off like a bicep curl, it might be a little bit of an easier way to educate somebody as to how to get to the certain desired intensity that we are looking to perform on an exercise. So that's just another way that we can utilize RPE or modify exercise intensity to keep adherence to a program. So continuing on, what are some other methods? So we have bilateral exercises, a lot of these where these could be where we are in a very stable position and we're able to produce lots of force, usually taxing our muscles, our nervous system as efficiently and as you know, as high of a magnitude as possible. One way that we can look at this is if let's say we were performing like a barbell deadlift, either sumo, conventional, modified, hybrid, however you want to perform them. So let's say we can swap this out for like a Romanian deadlift. A Romanian deadlift. Now, you can be very proficient at the Romanian deadlift. Sometimes there are people who train that for long durations of time, and their Romanian deadlift might beat their conventional or whatever barbell deadlift that they did on in the past because they've been training on it for so long. Like I said, there's a lot of nuance that goes on here. But typically what you will see is with the Romanian deadlift, we typically require a little bit less load going onto that movement because it is a different variation of the deadlift where we might be emphasizing a little bit more glutes, a little bit more hamstrings, little bit, there's different ways that we can modify the exercise, of course, but it depends on how long you've been training. But this is just one way that we can modify the deadlift in itself so that we can still provide some form of stimulus to the area that we're trying to grow or get adaptations to, while utilizing a little bit less load. Another one is like a B stance Romanian deadlift. So B stance Romanian deadlift is kind of similar to, I mean, sort of similar to like a regular barbell Romanian, except what we're doing here is we are going into a little bit more of a hinge position. We have one leg going back further, where we are going to some form of plantar flexion where our foot's like that, and we're going into big toe extension. So basically you have your big toe out here and your ankle up like this, kind of hard to see, but we're doing that. So it requires a little bit less stability demands compared to like a completely unilateral exercise. But what we still do is we're still utilizing less load compared to a bilateral or a more demanding bilateral exercise. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that Bulgarian split squats are entirely unilateral because we're still getting some form of support from the back leg, but it could be a very good way that we can implement some form of stimulus to bias that front leg to then, progressively get us into unilateral exercises. And of course, a lot of these methods may be utilized to desensitize an area that is going through some form of temporary muscle guarding. Muscle guarding is another form of like a spasm from what I've learned. It's one way that we can think of like a protective mechanism to an injured area. Our nervous system is saying, hey, I don't want to go through too much here. We can utilize these different exercise modifications so we can introduce exercise at a lower threshold intensity and gradually ramp up. Now, this could be an effective day-to-day tool to continue training, as with all these different kind of methods. So now, in conclusion, I hope you guys learned that, hopefully some of these tactics can be helpful with maintaining adherence to an exercise program. These aren't all of the methods, but these are some methods that I've learned that help me keep adherence to whatever I write myself a program or I write a program for others. This helps with maintaining that adherence so that we can continue applying the stimulus that is needed to drive adaptation within a program. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I'm making it. I'm learning all of this as I'm, as I'm trying to keep myself updated with all this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you guys for watching, and here's to getting strong. Thank you.